Praise be Jesus Christ. I wonder if anybody knows where the word hotel comes from. Well, we can make a direct connection in French. Hôte, hôtel, guest. It's a guest house. And where were the first guest houses and who ran them? Well, monks did in Europe. There were no hotels, no private hotels. A few inns here and there for transients, and people were a little bit more wealthy. But monasteries were the first guest houses. And it started with St. Benedict. St. Benedict offered a place to stay, a meal, a place of refuge sometimes even, to strangers and guests. And he writes in his rule, the only book that is significant in his reading, greet every guest as if you were greeting Christ. Every guest, greet as Jesus Christ. Most magnificent connection again of Jesus who comes to us in need, a person in need, a wanderer, a friend who's a little bit lost, somebody that just needs a place. Now, of course, now we have hotels, so we send them off to hotels. But somebody that just might need a place at your table. We welcome that person as if God is in the home. That's the tradition I grew up with. Elders would say, a guest in the home is God in the home. And so they were treated a little bit on the regal side, but as a family member, maybe a member of the royal family that they entered into. And how was this expressed? At Christmas time, an extra place setting was placed at the table. So in case anybody did not have a family to share with, they would share the room. The place is already ready for them to share a meal. For the empty place setting, for the unexpected guest. I know unexpected guests are a challenge for some housekeepers. They never were in our traditional home. They were a sign of God, Jesus entering. And so this particular practice of setting an empty place setting, I'm asking or suggesting you consider as a way to symbolically welcome a stranger to your table. And let this be called social outreach to someone who is alone, to someone who is homeless, to someone who lost a spouse, a child, somebody, and they're very much alone. Very much connected with the fast. As a matter of fact, in Lent is the highest ideal of the connection here between making an empty place, fasting, and feasting. One of the things we don't understand as Catholics as much is a fast is connected to a feast. If it's not connected to a feast, it's not true Christian fasting. As a matter of fact, the Eucharist was considered the first breakfast. You never ate anything prior to receiving Eucharist in the morning. The Eucharist broke the fast, you went home, and then continued the feasting. A tradition which some houses celebrate, particularly at Easter. Having fasted all Lent for 40 days, they bring the fruits of their fast, their donations, what they gave up, their sacrifices, their prayers, which they've collected all during Lent, sometimes as monetary donations, and they give those to a food pantry, those various donations, sometimes in kind even, canned goods and the like. And what? They create a feast for the people who are hungry, for whom fasting is not a choice, but a daily burden. And then, after having fasted, they collected their fruits of the fast, gave them, and created a feast for the poor, recognizing Christ in the poor, inviting Christ even symbolically to sit at their table and celebrate their, in this case, Easter feast. Well, there are many times during the year, and as a matter of fact, the old practice was every single major feast had a fast before it. So you'd have to fast before the feast. And what was ever collected at the fast was given to the poor for their feast, symbolically to Jesus. And then we celebrated Jesus' presence, who broke our fast at the Eucharist on the great feast day. Look at the close connection between Mass and fasting and feasting, which most of us don't know, was never handed on. This particular dish here, an empty plate, a full place setting at a table, which maybe will disrupt your order of the way you usually sit, is a reminder of your desire to fast and put aside for those who are not as fortunate as you. Whether that be in Lent by making sacrifices and then donating those sacrifices to the poor. This plate is a symbol of the fact that there's room for Jesus at your table. See how closer the connection between the heaven door and Jesus entering the plate and the table is becoming? See the essential connection between somebody who just needs to sit down and share a meal with somebody who hasn't for such a long time. As a matter of fact, here at the church we have a food pantry, and the food pantry also serves meals where people who just live alone come, members of the church even, everyone, not just those out there. And the front of our church, as you'll see at the end of this video, presents our patron, St. Casimir, distributing food and alms to homeless people, to single parents, to children, street children, to senior citizens who live alone and have nobody to eat with and no one that visits them every day. And the greatest way we can show them our hospitality, almost as if we're opening a spiritual hotel, is to welcome this guest as we would welcome Jesus himself. And I suggest this little refrain, this psalm refrain, with all the text will be in the Tandem article, along with certain texts from the Psalms that celebrate the goodness of a believer who has room in their family and home and place. For whom? For the stranger. And this is the song, I think, a short refrain, which you can sing at table during a fast meal. Not a fast food meal, but a fasting meal. And let this be your table prayer for that day. Every day of a fast. The Lord hears the cry of the poor. Blessed be the Lord. And everybody repeats. The Lord hears the cry of the poor. Blessed be the Lord. Praised be our Lord Jesus Christ.